Hey guys, welcome back to Retrospect. Today's video I'm going to be painting another piece in my Splice series. This little 6x6 painting is going to be part of a show that's actually taking place later this year. It's called the Small Work Show put on by MakerJake Studios, and I will link more information to that below. So I'm just gonna get into the painting. I don't really have a lot that I want to talk about in this video. Guess I'm just gonna kind of wing it. This is a pretty typical painting, nothing too fancy going on here, just my usual techniques. Using my top 3-4 favorite brushes. The Winsor Newton 7 series right here is great for filling in all these medium, small blocks of color. And it can even do larger ones. I have a larger brush that's a size up that I use for even bigger blocks, but they're pretty versatile brushes. And right now I'm just using a kneaded eraser. Sometimes I like to do that at the start of a painting, and I guess I just decided I needed to do it a bit more before I went and painted this section. But when I use the transfer paper that I make myself, sometimes a little bit of the graphite residue sticks in places where there's no lines, and that can muddy up my painting, so I like to just use a kneaded eraser and sort of gently wipe that away. And as you saw, it didn't really affect my lines, it just sort of tidied up any sort of loose particulates. So that's another little thing I like to do before painting a section. I'm switching between my tiniest Trekell brush here. This one is actually my smallest one, not the one I usually use, to do all these fine, tiny line work bits. When I set out to create this piece, I didn't really have any sort of goal in mind. Some of my other Splice pieces, for example, the Ninja Turtle ones that I did earlier this year, I really knew that I wanted that one to feel and be Ninja Turtle themed, and I also knew that I wanted to incorporate plants. So when I started crafting that piece in Photoshop, I sort of referred to it as the green one. Whereas this current piece that I'm painting right now, I didn't really have a plan for it. I didn't have any sort of idea of what direction I wanted to go. So basically what I did is I looked through my inspiration folders, my source material folders, and all the folders that I have for my previous pieces. Sometimes I will save images that I like into a folder and then not use it for that specific project. So I like to go back and just check through things and see if there's any odds and ends that I never got around to using or want to use again. The white and black Jimmy's pattern in the background is actually from, I think, my number 7th Splice. I used it there as well, and I really like the effects, so I used it again. I also had this amazing pixel art hamburger that I found online, and I sort of adapted it and used it in this one too. And I think that is sort of where that's like the grounding image, I think, in this piece. That's why I called it Burger Break, because I literally broke up the burger. What I'm saying right now is pretty much as philosophical or as pensive as I get when I discuss my work. It's usually not too heavy on the philosophical meaning. Symbolism is not a huge part of how I create my art. It's usually based on aesthetics and kind of a gut instinct of images that call to me, images I think work well together. So there's not a lot of verbal explanation I can give you as to how or why I create these compositions. It's a lot of instinct and it's a lot of playing around. So anyways, once I got the hamburger part, I knew I wanted to add some more comic book elements to sort of counteract the really blocky look of the pixel section. So I just went back in my archives and found that really great whoop 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 whoop. It must have been like a helicopter sound effect that a comic book was trying to make. And I added that in, and then that sort of started me on the theme of pink. So I found another section in my comic book archive that had some pink in it, and well, I don't know, just sort of played around with it until I liked the layout, and there we go. I also snuck in a tiny little Donald Duck, which you can see me painting. I mean, with tiny pieces like this, I try not to feel as precious about them either. This one is, again, only 6x6. Some of my other pieces in this series have been, well, one was 12x12, but a couple have been 14x14, and even one or two that were 16x16. And I've got one wood panel in my cupboard that is 18x18 that I'm hoping I can make a big one for my solo show that's in December. But that's another story. So anyways, I'm not very precious about these small ones because the composition doesn't have to say as many things, or I don't know, the scale at which all my little pieces are works well for this size. It's really hard for me to explain, but I just don't feel as concerned about making the piece say as much necessarily. It's a weird hang up, and yeah, I'm really bad at explaining why I do art and my process, so I apologize for this mess of a sentence here. I'm almost finished the painting part, as you can see, just sort of filling in the key background here, and then it really sort of comes together once I add the black little jimmies, as I call them. This one was fun to make. I think overall the filmed footage was around 3.5 hours. I also didn't film myself painting all of the hamburger. I got kind of fed up with my camera. I still haven't gotten the hang of it yet, so that's why it's a bit blurry sometimes. So yeah, it's still a pretty short one for me to paint, which is nice. Sometimes the bigger ones can take, 20-25 hours of work, so it's nice to have a small one to break it up, and then you feel kind of like you've accomplished something at the end, even though it's not as big and impressive. It's still a nice little piece, and yeah, it definitely boosts my my motivation and my artist esteem. So sometimes it's good to change up the scale that you work in, I guess. I guess right here you'll see me using my X-Acto knife to clean up any little edges where paint has oozed under the tape, which is my pet peeve, but luckily it's a pretty easy fix. And now for this part, you'll notice the W is pink. I decided I didn't like the pink, it didn't stand out enough, so I tried using my darkest purple, looked at it for a minute, decided I didn't like that, and then I went in with the lighter purple and thought that I kind of liked the painterly, not quite full fill color of the in progress, so I just decided to keep it sort of a patchy, worn looking paint job, and I'm okay with it. I'm not in love with this decision, but at the end of the day I think it works overall as a compositional piece. And this is another angle of it, and here's the finished product. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!